Thank you. Good, okay. It's 2:30 and we will call this commission work session of Port of Olympia to order. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
A motion to approve the agenda as it's presented.
Second.
Any discussion? It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We would like to invite James Summer, Capital Assets Program Senior Manager, up to talk about our capital investment program budget brief. Hi, James.
Hi, hello, commissioners.
Looks like he's got a lot
I
to say.
know.
Yes. Let's start with a handout for you all.
I don't print things out from James anymore. Thank you.
Okay.
Does Commissioner Downing have this?
It was sent, yes.
Yeah, this went out. in
Commissioner
an
Downing,
email.
we are looking at this is our handout, which you got in an email.
I have that pulled up as part of the packet.
Perfect,
And I also have I can see the PowerPoint slide. It's great.
perfect.
All right, so good afternoon, commissioners. I'm James Summer, your Capital Assets Program Manager, and I am here today to talk to you about the 2024 Draft Capital Investment Plan. So as we get through today's presentation, I just wanted to let you know there's no action requested. This is just an advisory only. We're here to share information and hopefully answer any questions or field any comments that you have.
Question. Sorry.
Sure.
Point of clarification, James, so does that mean that you're going to be back in 2 weeks with the action item on the capital investment plan, or does that occur much later in the budget process?
Yep, that'll be later in the budget process. This is just to give you guys an overview of where we're at and the draft you're currently fielding for the 2024 capital budget.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So a little bit of an overview. The capital investment plan has been kind of a multi-year work. We started in 2022 to begin to build this program. This year in 2023, we have a 5-year projection. So the handout that I gave you today, primarily the first sheet, which is the 2024 capital budget, is what we're going to focus on. However, the additional sheets have the years 2 through 5 on them, just so you're aware of kind of what this program is looking like and where we're at as the build out has continued. And then 2024, our next milestone, we are hoping to have a 10-year program outlook. So we are going to double what we are currently at and just try and make sure that we are outward looking. Some of the benefits this program has to the port is financial stewardship. So by knowing where we are at with our current investments and capital assets, it kind of gives us an idea of where we're going. This helps us to spend port dollars more wisely so that we make sure that we are good stewards of the funds. Part of it's for transparency. Again, you can see where we're at for next year as well as where we hope to go in the future. Another very large benefit to the port is it helps us to balance these projects out port-wide. So some of these capital projects end up being a high dollar project. And by having this program, we're able to balance out so that maybe one year we're focusing on the marine terminal and the next year we can focus on the airport or the marina, and we kind of spread out the hit of those large value projects. And the last benefit that I have listed here is to be able to leverage external funding sources. By knowing that we have giant projects coming up down the road, we can position those projects to be better applicable for grant funding or maybe state appropriations. And so it really helps us to capture some of those external funding sources. So a little bit about the process. So we started by identifying projects that are greater than $10,000. A lot of that came from these. We've had a number of assessments done over the years. And we went through these and we pulled out projects that we thought were applicable. Anything over $10,000 made it on a list. After we had our giant list of projects, we developed an evaluation criteria. Some of those larger evaluation criteria was, is it a safety issue? Is it a regulatory? Or is it something we're being mandated to do? Is it an operational need that we need to address now so that our business units can continue on? And will it generate revenue for the port, which will help us again then fund more capital projects? Once we had our list and we had our development criteria, we went through identifying the different funding sources for these projects. Those include things like the port dollars, grants. It could be state appropriations. It could be bonds. And then once we had that, we went through and ranked those projects based on those evaluation criteria. And depending on how those ranked, we then began to schedule those year by year. Obviously, the more important ones we tried to schedule earlier, and things that maybe could be held off, we scheduled in the later years of the capital investment plan. So like anything, we had different focus points for this year and challenges that came along with that. Part of our focus was to continue or complete our existing projects. So we have a number of projects that have gone on from year to year. Some of that also falls into the challenges where we had supply chain issues, such as the B&C electrical docks. And so we were really just trying to complete those projects and get them closed out. We also wanted to focus on grant-funded projects this year. We were very lucky that we were able to secure a large number of grants, which allowed us to get some of these projects underway. So we wanted to make sure that we captured those grant-funded projects and got them completed.
Can I ask a question about that?
Absolutely.
Have you, when you look at grant funding, do we look at other ports and what grants they're getting for direction? And then what percentage of most ports' capital projects are grant funded? What are we shooting for, I guess?
So I can't specifically speak to the percentage of other ports as far as what they have grant funding, but certainly once I came on board, we started looking at other ports and trying to figure out where they're getting their funding from. And we have gone after like the port security grants, the PIDP through MARAD, the grant that we got last year. Those are some grants that other ports are using. So we are certainly looking at that. For us, I think this year, and again, this is my first year with the grants, but this year seems to be one of the higher years of grant funded projects through the FAA and then also some of the PIDP grant stuff. So
it'll just be, we'll continue to kind of figure out where it leads us as far as
absolutely.
One isn't leading the other.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
And a lot of times when we're going after these grants, we have to be cognizant of the match for them as well.
Right.
So although there are a large number of grants out there, we can't necessarily capture all of them due to the matching that is required for a lot of those grants.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the last focus on there, they position these projects for external funding. And so part of that is looking at grants that are upcoming. So maybe it's a project that isn't of dire need to complete next year, but there's a grant that will help us pay for that, whether that's a zero match grant or a low percentage match grant for the port, then that's part of our focus is to try and capture those grant dollars. And on to the challenges, as I mentioned, we have some supply chain delays. The BC electrical docks, this project started approximately 2 years ago. We've been waiting for the manufacturing of some of those power pedestals. And so part of the challenge is making sure those projects are on the books when we have those supplies. And just the volume and timing of projects. There's lots of projects we want to get done. And again, it's just making sure that we're balancing out so that all the business units are taken care of and we're getting those safety and regulatory projects taken care of. So the 2024 highlighted projects, I just wanted to pull some of these projects out to give a brief discussion on. So for the airport, we have the airfield pilot controlled lighting system replacement. And so what this system does is allows pilots to activate the runway lighting system as they're coming in for landing. We had some components of this system that went down and we looked at replacing them. As it turns out, the system is obsolete, which now led us to a full system replacement to make sure that we have a fully functioning system. We have the unleaded avgas tank and truck installation. And so the FAA is pushing to have lead-free aviation fuels for piston engines by 2030. So we are looking to get ahead and go ahead and get this infrastructure in place here. And as I understand it, it will make us one of the first airports in Washington to be able to have this service. We have the runway 1735 rehab design. And as a quick note, some of the documentation that went out had this as 1725 runway. It is the 1735 runway design. And what this project is in 2009, the main runway that goes north-south shifted about 1,500 feet south. And this project will help us rehab the southernmost 1,500 feet of that runway. And so we are going to do a crack seal and overlay. And essentially, this will just get the tail end of that runway up to standards with the rest that is already in place. Onto the non-ops and admin. So we have the Marine Drive Northeast asphalt replacement. This is from Olympia Ave Northeast to the Marine Terminal. We have some state appropriations for this project, so we're looking to replace this. This will benefit not only the trucks that are coming from the Marine Terminal back onto Olympia Ave, but also for the community, those who are using the Boatworks or the Marina boat launch will also travel part of this road, as well as coming to the market. We have the port cybersecurity infrastructure replacement project. So part of that project was this year was replacing some of the Wi-Fi signals and beefing up security for that. And in 2024, we are looking to replace the fiber that runs across the Marine Terminal. As part of that project, we will be pulling out the connection points from the old admin building as it is no longer in use. And the project is twofold. One, it is going to help us be better prepared for cyber threats, which are ever increasing, as well as making sure that the port's data needs are met by making sure the infrastructure is in place for the future.
Just that you mentioned the admin building, will that ever be used again? Is that something that,
Talking about the one that's on the Port Peninsula?
yeah, no,
No, that-
obviously it
that-
won't be used for this, but could it be used for the Marine Terminal? I guess I went in it the other day and I didn't realize it's pretty good condition.
Somebody actually let you in? Who was that? No.
It just, is it,
That building has been slated for demolition for a long time. We've just never been able to make it a priority to happen. And I don't anticipate that, in terms of using it as a functional building repurpose would be an option. Now, whether or not, in years past, we've had buildings where we've repurposed lumber, and recycled and things like that. I don't know if that would be an option, but until we actually get to the demolition of that is when we'd evaluate that and figure out what's good. But
but
to
the
use it
piece
as
of
building, I
improving
don't think
it
so.
is beyond.
Yeah.
Next on here, we have the Marina and Boatworks. So we have the waterfront center development. And so this is really in the design phase of the project, and this will directly tie into the Destination Waterfront Initiative. And really this phase of the project is trying to come up with a design that incorporates the benefits of the community, such as an estuarium and a meeting space, and also balances the needs of the port. This building will sit adjacent to where the current marina office is. And like I said, this is in the development phase. This will be a multi-year project.
How did this one wind up under the Marina and Boatworks?
So that is historically where it has sat. And so this is where I placed it.
Right, and I think, Commissioner, because the discussion originally started out as a replacement for the Marina office.
Right.
And the fact that the development is on the Marina designated area in that district, that's how it just remained there.
Even though it's an admin building,
Correct.
and that just is maybe putting a pin in our discussion around how we allocate overhead and administration, and Rudy and I have been having. this
Thank you,
conversation.
Commissioner. There's a discussion coming on that at a future meeting.
So the marina is not getting stuck with the cost of the, you know,
Absolutely.
because when we're trying to be looking at our business lines, and their performance, it's hard when we're including things. Do you have a comment?
No, I think that's a great point, because, looking at the Marina and the Boatworks and there's their projects, there's no grant money. So I'm wondering, where does the 483,000 come from? So, because I don't know. We've talked before about how the money that the port has, operational money, you know, at least there's no way for me to see what money is restricted, what money is marine terminal, what money is Marina Boatworks. From what I've seen of the Marina Boatworks financials, it doesn't seem likely that they have a reserve. So just understanding where that money would come from would be important to me.
Absolutely.
Got it.
And the last one here, we have the marine terminal. So most of these projects are all going to be in the design and grant administration phase. But you know, the marine terminal is a vital asset to our community. It's only one of 11 deepwater drafts in the state of Washington, it also being the most southern draft. And that kind of gives us some benefits for the community and for the port. Being that it is a deepwater draft, we are available for international trade. Some of those larger ships that can't get into these shallow water berths can come here, as well as from an emergency preparedness standpoint. You know, if there ever was a major disaster, having the port terminal available to have some of those bigger rescue ships and equipment to be able to come in, you know, is very important for the community. And so on to the projects. Berth 1, there are 3 berths on the marine terminal. Berth 1 currently has some repairs that are needed to bring it back to full capacity. There is the asphalt paving replacement. There's a number of areas in the asphalt where it has started to fail. We have some sinking, we have some potholes opening up, so we'd like to replace those areas and bring that back up to 100%. And then we'd also like to replace the maintenance facility. The current maintenance facility has come to the end of its life cycle, so we are no longer able to fully utilize it as we would like. So we would like to replace that so that our maintenance staff and the marine terminal can fully utilize it again.
James, when it says PIDP grant award, this is the money that we received, but the money that's being spent isn't covered in the grant, which is why it's port funds to get us to the point where we can spend the grant funds.
Thank you for asking that. So part of that grant, until the grant agreement is finalized, we are not able to utilize the actual grant dollars. However, we are in the process of filling out some of the pre-award paperwork. So our goal is that this will be part of our match. So although it won't be grant dollars, it will count against our grant grant match for that requirement of approximately 25%.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So what does that all mean? So we are proposing capital investments of approximately 5.5 million. Of that, grant funds and external funds are approximately 3 million, which leads down to port funds of approximately 2.4 million. On this next slide, I want to break down a little bit about that external funding. So approximately 1.3 million of that came from the Freight Mobility Strategic Investment Board. So that is what is going to go towards the Marine Drive replacement. We had approximately 1.3 million from the FAA, which will all be airport projects. Approximately 365,000 from the Port Security Grants. So that's the Port Security Grant 2021 and 2023. About approximately 80,000 from the Clean Energy Fund Grant. And approximately 80,000 from the Maritime Administration Port Infrastructure Development Program, should we able to get some of those pre-award secured through the grant agreement. And so that is the end of my presentation. At this point, I would ask for any questions or comments.
Commissioner Al, do you have? Or either one of you?
Commissioner Downing's been pretty quiet. I'll defer to him if he wants to go first.
Do you have any questions, Commissioner Downing?
Oh, sure thing. So, thank you, Chair Harding. Well, to build off of Commissioner Aiello's comments, when we look at the, what was it, James, 2.4 million of port funds? Is that correct?
That is, yes.
So basically, I mean, first you make a capital budget, then you see if you have the money to fund that capital budget. And the port is sitting on, you know, somewhere around 15 million in liquidity. So I presume that 2.4 million is gonna come right from our liquid assets. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Commissioner, I can address that too. So yes, it will come from the port's capital reserves, and you are correct. As we go through this budget process, we're doing this in modules. We've created the draft capital plan. And, you know, the next meeting we have, we're going to talk about tax levy. And then the next meeting, we're going to talk about another piece. And then at one point, we blend the first draft of the operational budget and all of these together. And then we're able to assess if in reality, the 2.4 million, you know, fits in the budget strategy. As of now, the initial indications are we're hopeful that it will. But yes, the answer to your question is that 2.45 million would come out of capital reserves as they're currently listed.
And so when Commissioner Ayala wonders if the marina has its own pot of money, the answer is no, it's all blended together. Is that true?
That is correct, Commissioner. And you know, the history at the Port of Olympia, we've never segregated out a criteria for a capital investment to be demonstrated liquidity, if you will, by business unit. So if as we look to the future, those discussions are certainly appropriate, but as of right now, that's not a criteria. So that money would come out of the 15 or so million capital reserves.
Well, thank you. So I have 16 items on the this capital plan for 2024 that I have questions about. So I don't want to monopolize the microphone. Commissioner Ayala, would you like to jump in with a few questions before I?
Well,
Continue.
sure, yeah, I'll just say that, you know, I understand the Port of Olympia has certainly has enough funds available to cover the 2.4 million. My point is, and always has been, we don't understand the breakdown of those funds. What we know that all airport funds are restricted. We have no idea how much of that 15 or so million is restricted by the airport. That's what I'm saying. And you know, and the other reason I question is because having the waterfront center under Marina and Boat Works, I don't know. To me, it doesn't really fit there because to me, that waterfront center is a Port of Olympia building that the marina will utilize for their office. They'd be more like a tenant than owners of that building. That's really the reason I brought that up like that.
And that's an easy fix, Commissioner. That was listed that way because that's the district in which it occurs.
Mhm.
As it's not meant to be assigned to in any way to a budgetary function or a financial function to that district. Easy fix.
Let's see, did I have, the other thing, the cybersecurity, fiber to the port cybersecurity, we heard, I don't know how long ago it's been, but heard something about, was it the Coast Guard going to do an evaluation of the marine terminal? Does this have anything to do with that, or is that completely separate?
So we are hoping to get this done, or we will get this done prior to that happening.
Oh,
Rudy may be able to speak a little bit more as to how that came about. I do not believe it's related. However, by them coming in, doing that assessment, I know that will open us up to additional funds if they are needed, if they do identify issues.
yeah, okay. That's what I thought. Thank you. That's all I have right now.
I'll ask a couple questions and then you can go, Commissioner Downing, and then if you don't pick up my specific items, then I can ask some more questions. So I know we're looking at 2024, but when we look into 2025, it's a much larger number that we're looking at spending. when you're making those projections, and maybe this is a Rudy question as much as a James question. That doesn't seem practical to me, that could be a reasonable capital budget for those following couple of years, given our revenues and given the port's allocation. And this is not even taking into consideration the Bud Inlet project that we've embarked on, which is a significant investment in capital. So how are we not punting on things? We're gonna have to pay the piper at some point. So how are you taking that into
So
consideration?
the budget we're talking about is the first page for 2024.
Understood.
Remaining years are unvetted and fully vetted projections that come out of our planning documents. As we move to the next phase is when they get much more scrutiny and evaluation. Now, the Bud Inlet piece is not a capital
I
expenditure.
understand.
That's in our environmental budget coming out of operations, out of the tax levy. That's a separate discussion item.
So I guess, how do you, when you're coming up with this capital budget, determine what a reasonable amount to spend of port funds is? Is it a percentage of cash? Is it a percentage of revenue? Is it, because it doesn't feel like there's a structure around that. And I think that's kind of what Commissioner Ayala and I think all three of us have continued to say is we want to analyze the business lines just so that we can have an understanding of,
Sure.
and
So-
then we want to know what our future maintenance expenses and capital expenses are going to be so that we aren't allocating money now. I mean, maybe we wouldn't pave Marine Drive if next year the whole building was going to fall over if we didn't spend $10 million. You know what I mean? Like,
So I guess there's a couple of items that kind of overlap there that I'll try and address. So the first thing, to perhaps what Commissioner Ayala alluded to earlier, there's never been a litmus test that says, for example, we're not going to do a marina project unless the marina demonstrates in a given year it's going to put in, bring in a net operating income of a certain amount of money. And so that's a whole nother conceptual plan of what that would look like. The challenge that we're running into now is that this is the first time we've been able to put together a draft 5-year plan, and we're very specifically focused on 2024 with the knowledge that those remaining years are very high and are obviously going to be a challenge. Historically, and I look at my long tenure here at the port, when we go into a capital budget, it's gonna in any given year tends to fall out between 2 and 2.5 million in actual outlay of port dollars. When we went into this planning process, we didn't set a limit and say we need to construct this to come out with no more than 2.5. We went through the process unrestricted, and at the end, this is where the number fell out. So once we, as I mentioned earlier, once we get and start plugging in the operational budget connects to this, we see if, where does that come out and what do those numbers look like? How those relate to future years, this year's 2.5, I don't know that we can fully and satisfactorily answer that question for you right now, because it's a monumental planning effort. And
yeah. And I'm very respectful of the fact that James seems like he's been here for a long time and he hasn't. And many people in our finance department are. So I totally appreciate that we're building the plan as we fly. I would like to get to a point where if we're spending 80% of our money on a business unit that provides us 20% of our revenue, we just at least need to know that we're doing that. And we need to have a conversation as to Bob's favorite term, mission versus margin.
Right.
And because that's not a good use of funds in the private sector. And when I'm looking at things in the private sector, I have to make that analyzation of, well, I'm spending all this capital investment, maintenance, all of these things, but I'm not getting the return.
And to that very point, as part of our conversations previously, we're programming in a look at our business units moving forward so that we can do exactly what it is that you're asking. What is our viability of our business units, and does it make sense to continue investing in them the way we currently are?
And I think that if we can not be afraid of that, because we might say, the airport, the real estate department is losing $14 million a year, and we think that there is such a compelling, I'm using it as an example because it's not, it's doing well. Because the other ones are like more controversial. Like, so it's losing $14 million a year, but there is such a compelling public interest reason that we want to use our tax money, we want to use our excess revenue from our other business lines. Great. And I think not being afraid of having that conversation as it pertains to the marina, the marine terminal, which are the areas where we're probably gonna have to have that conversation a little more. Because to your point, public safety, emergency response, one of 11 deep water ports, there's lots of compelling reasons to fund these things, but we need to know what we're funding. I think that the airport money should be a separate budget, because to Bob's point, it's got a fence around it. And so when I'm looking at next year and I'm looking at the totals, and I'm thinking, well, you know, the airport's getting kind of a big allocation. We've talked about this. If Newmarket is doing great, then all that money has to stay at the airport. And so the airport is going to have more money to play with than the other business lines.
So, and perhaps we can go, a little bit more detail. I'll touch on it now, but in detail in a future briefing. Right now, the airport funds are not restricted. The airport funds will be restricted at the point when the bond obligations are paid off. As of right now, the money that comes into the airport goes into the port's general fund in an unrestricted fashion, because to give you an example, if the net operating income at the end of the year is 1.3 million at the airport, that cash goes to pay off the $12 million in bonds that have been used to date to develop the airport. Once that $12 million in bonds gets paid off, so that there's no longer a balance to the mothership Port of Olympia, that is the point at which the airport funds become fenced, and anything at the airport has to stay at the airport. So it's a little bit, that's kind of the overview, and we can go a little bit more into detail at a further briefing, but as of right now, those funds are not restricted.
Okay.
But just to be clear, the funds you're saying the funds are not restricted, but any excess funds that the airport generates goes to debt service.
Correct.
For the airport.
For the airport, because over the years, the Port of Olympia has funded capital projects through bonds for the airport, and the airport continues to pay down that balance. And so if, for example, at the end of the year, this year, it's down to 5 million or 4 million of the last 10 years of bonds. And then the port decides to go out and do another project and float a bond issue for, just pick a number, $3 million. Now that balance owed to the mothership is another 3 million on top of the 5, it's 8. So the port continues, or the airport continues every year paying down that balance to the point when it gets to when the bonds are paid off, that's when the gate occurs at the airport.
Right, but we're not taking money made at the airport and buying a waterfront center. I mean, I guess if you created a bond, is that what the point you're trying to make?
No, the point I'm saying is at the end of the year, if there's the net operating income at the airport, it goes into the one big airport or Port of Olympia bank account.
But as we're looking at capital expenditures over the course of time,
Right.
the airport is going to have unique circumstances
Correct.
around. So I get what you're saying,
Right.
and the decisions are going to be somewhat separate from, well, I don't know, should we give the marina $100 or should we give the marine terminal $100? We've got $100. Like, the airport is always going to have a little bit of a different analysis being layered on it. No? Tell me if I'm missing something.
Well, I don't view it that way. I'm trying to understand why the commission would view it that way. I'm just not, maybe I'm not doing a very good job of explaining it.
So tell me if I'm missing this. If one of these warehouses happens and you've got $10 million sitting in the airport account, all the bonds have been paid off. That money has a fence around it and has to be used to support the airport.
That's correct. If the bonds are paid off, that the port originally floated for the airport are paid off, then yes, the money is spent.
So when we're looking at future capital
Mhm.
allocation, if Newmarket is doing well, which it is going to
Right.
do, then the airport can have capital projects that are far beyond our options in our other business lines.
That could be a true statement, yes.
Am I missing anything though?
I don't think so.
Do you have a question, Bob?
No.
Okay, Commissioner Downing, 16 items, let's go. Oh, I think you're muted, Commissioner Downing.
You're muted.
Well, thank you, Chair Harding, and I want to say that those are all good questions, and at the end of the discussion, you know, I pretty much agree. I mean, it's nice that Rudy's here to remind us that the airport money is still coming back to the overall port until those bonds are paid off, because we do not see that in documents or whatever, and probably don't see it in the budget either, but it's good that Rudy and Rudy's going to pass that knowledge on to other people so that we can keep track of that, because it's important to know what that $15 million, where we can use it, where we can't use it. So that's important. And so I want to say at the outset that I'm going to go nuts here, because this is my last budget rodeo, and you know, I question and I wonder I'm always asking myself what the role of the commission is, because I would say that 90% of everything that happens at the port is staff initiated and staff driven, and 10% of it, I would say, comes from commissioners, what we feel as a unit, as a body, excited about. So James, no offense, but, you know, I have a lot of questions about this, you know, capital plan, and it could be, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that, you know, this is my 8th budget looking at it, and so on and so forth. So anyway, without further ado, so looking at the airport, you know, so it's kind of ironic. So this is kind of getting ahead of the ball game, but when I look at something called Airfield Pilot Controlled Lighting System, and the nice part is that it's mostly grant funded, very small, and then the airfield, could you explain the airfield lighting regulators before I go on?
I would invite
Item 2.
Warren here.
Hello, Commissioner. I appreciate that. Yes, there are 2 different points to this. The pilot controlled lighting system is a radio operated device that turns the lights on and off for 15-minute periods of time. It has a separate receiver, transceiver, radio capability connected to a control panel in the control tower. And then it functions its on-off power to the regulators. We actually have 4 regulators in a vault at the base of the control tower. One is a spare, one works the runway lights, and then the other 2 run our taxiway lights in 2 different breakdowns. So these airfield lighting regulators actually take the power coming in and then transmit the power through underground cables to all of the lighting on the airport. And so it's the regulators then that control the power distribution through the actual lighting fixtures scattered throughout the airport. The pilot controlled lighting system is simply a radio operated on-off switch, if that helps. 2 different components, 2 different systems, but all connected to the lighting system.
Okay. And so the related question that I was getting to is that last time I had a conversation with Rudy, and it's probably a few years ago, but that a plane or helicopter, when they land at the airport or they take off, the landing fee or the takeoff fee is like $5 or $6. Is that true? Some small number?
It's a small number, but it doesn't even begin to accrue until the aircraft landing weight exceeds 12,500 pounds.
Oh. Well, where I'm going with this is, now I would like to know that that is in line with other airports, because, you know, when you talk about $650,000 to improve the lighting at the airport, and the people are actually using it are paying a tiny amount of money to land or take off. So does that make sense, that landing and takeoff fee at the airport still?
It does. Many general aviation airports that don't have commercial service don't even charge a landing fee. We collect a landing fee that is attributed by our fixed base operators, Glacier Aviation and Safety in Motion, for which they get to keep 10% as an administrative handling fee. And then the bulk of that, I don't have the M&O budget directly in front of me, but I can give you that dollar. But when we talk about 650,000, I also want to make sure that we're aware that the cost of the port for this is $65,000. The rest of it is federal grant funding for these two particular projects.
Okay, so as long as those takeoff and landing fees are on a par with other airports, I'm happy. Item number 3 is unleaded avgas tank and fuel truck, and $50,000 in port costs, $450,000 in grant. I think a lot of port watchers and environmentalists would be super happy that, you know, we're moving to unleaded avgas. But my question is, why do we need a new fuel truck?
Okay, so this is a little bit of a complex situation for right now, but I'll try to break it down. Right now, there is one fuel manufacturer in the country that has been certified by the FAA to provide unleaded avgas to every single piston aircraft made now or in the future. Only one. There are others that are in testing, but they use a different formulation, a different chemistry, which has not yet been proven and vetted and has not yet reached a certification level of acceptance within the industry or by the FAA, and is probably at least several years away from doing so. But the one product exists. It's a company in Oklahoma, and they have been certified as usable. Not only is it usable, but it's also mixable in any percentage with existing leaded avgas. So in other words, you can fill up your tank here with unleaded avgas and then go to another airport where they only offer leaded avgas and mix it in any percentage and have an acceptable use and an acceptable capability according to the FAA. Here's the catch. For any pilot or aircraft owner that uses the unleaded avgas, they must have what's called an STC, a supplemental type certificate issued to that individual pilot and aircraft owner for both the aircraft and the engine that allows that fuel to be used. It's up to the pilot and aircraft owner to actually apply and receive that STC. Without the STC, you cannot use unleaded avgas, and therefore you cannot market it or use it. You cannot mix it. So as a result, until there is a market penetration of great significance by which enough aircraft have an STC, there's not enough market penetration by which you can actually have the mixing. If it was a perfect world, we'd be able to pour that unleaded avgas into our existing tanks, but then it wouldn't be able to be sold unless the actual user of that mixed fuel has the STC. So we need to provide a means by which we establish an additional avgas tank to segregate this unleaded avgas. Since we don't have self-serve fuel, we therefore also must have a fuel truck that delivers only the unleaded avgas to those aircraft that are STCs. So the next question is probably, well, why would we do this without having enough of a market? This is the chicken or the egg argument to some extent about, well, do you provide the fuel first or do you wait to the STCs on the hope that you have the fuel? Here is the advantage that we have at this airport, which is yet to be determined. The contract for Washington State Patrol and Department of Fish and Wildlife is held by the FBOs here at Olympia Regional Airport, specifically Safety in Motion. The end result is they use 25% of the avgas that we sell on an annual basis. I am working with Washington State Patrol and will be working soon with DFW to go ahead and ensure that, okay, state, let's get we want to get unleaded avgas. We have state legislation that's saying we're going to ban the sale of leaded avgas in this state. And that will probably be revisited this coming legislative session. Okay, state, let's create the incentives. Let's pay for the STCs for our state agencies. Let's lead with our state agencies, get them the STCs, give them the budget authority to pay the additional incremental cost for this unleaded avgas. And now we have 25% of our gas on the airport will then be sold in an unleaded format to our state agencies. And we're setting the example, setting the performance. And then that will then encourage additional pilots and owners. If I could have in my own airplane, if I could have that avgas tank on the field today, I'd be buying it. And I don't require an STC because I have an experimental aircraft as an example. So, but it's a question of we've got to start somewhere. If we start with provide the supply, get the state agencies on board, and now we have a marketplace where people will come to Olympia to buy unleaded avgas.
I would assume Governor Inslee would like unleaded avgas.
I would imagine.
Okay. Thank you. Wonderful explanation, Warren. I totally get that. Thank you for that detail. Number 7, airport snowplow. Is that a brand new snowplow or is it replacing, I guess, whatever we have now?
It's replacing Old Yeller. That Old Yeller was our water truck, which you may recall was surplus and had reached the end of its life. And what we had is we had the water truck from the marine terminal would then do double duty during the wintertime and serve as the basis for our heavy duty snowplow out at the airport during the wintertime. That particular vehicle reached the end of its life. You may recall in this year's budget, or perhaps it was late last year, we purchased a new water truck. Unfortunately, the new water truck is not strong enough or capable enough to support the heavy duty snowplow for the runway. So we need an additional used vehicle is what the intention is here, to buy an appropriate used vehicle that would then allow us to have the snowplow connected, and allow for snow removal operations. In a heavy snow, our equipment right now is short of the mark in terms of being able to meet the capacity needs that our previous equipment provided.
Okay, well, that's great. So you're talking like a big giant pickup or bigger than that?
Bigger than that, heavy duty dump truck.
I see. Okay. I'm always pushing to find an opening for somewhere on this list is electric vehicle. And I can't remember where I saw it.
Number five. It's number 5.
Oh, number 5. So, I hope Warren, you explore, if you can buy that in electric EV type vehicle.
Right now, what's anticipated is the type of vehicle we would need for the snowplow. We haven't seen the torque or the capability to go ahead and move the snow. So we're always keeping our eyes open for that. But right now, we don't have a vehicle of the size and the capacity at this budget point to be able to do that. But we'll certainly keep an eye on electrifying the entire fleet going forward.
And the charging capacity isn't there yet either.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Warren. Chair Harding, I'd like to jump to, I have, I think 3 questions for Marina and Boatworks. So I don't know if Rudy's can take these or James or,
I can try. I'm wearing that hat too. So.
Oh, that's right, Warren. Okay, great.
We're gonna triple
Number
team
2,
you, Commissioner.
pardon?
We're gonna triple team you.
Oh, okay. Number 10, what's BW stand for?
Boatworks.
Boatworks.
Oh, Boatworks. Replace media and storm pond. What's media?
That is the filtration capability within the storm pond itself in the base of the pond. So it's basically the item that captures the contaminants and the bacteria before it filters through. If you're familiar
it's some
with the
sort of
cascade pull facility where we have the carbon granules
Okay.
that we have in
Right.
our tanks, that's the media that accepts and collects and provides the filtration. The media in the storm pond, I don't have the technical definition of exactly what it's made of or what it does, but it serves the same purpose and it's just reached the end of its useful life.
Okay, great. Thank you. Number 12, what's the tractor attachment? What's that go on? What is it? What does it go on to?
So for this one, this was an attachment that will be used over in the Boatworks area. And this, from what I understand, is to help move around some of the different equipment and when customer boats and things of that nature.
Can I get offline? Can I get more information about that, James?
Absolutely.
I don't know. I guess you want me to, anyway. So can somebody give me more information offline? Because I don't even know, I still don't know what a tractor attachment is. You know, I spent a lot of time in the boat works, and all I
Right.
know is they have that giant, they got a couple of pickups and the giant boat lift. So I'm not sure what that is. Next one is 13. What's an asphalt sealer for $80,000? What's that?
So part of this is to help us implement our asphalt repair plan. So what this is a piece of equipment that will help us to seal some of our asphalt that is existing. This was born out of our asphalt condition assessment. So essentially what this is just another item or a piece of equipment that can be used to maintain the asphalt at its current PCR rating so that it can prolong the life of the asphalt. And primarily this is something that we have hired out in the past through contracts. And the idea is to slowly transition some of this work to in the port so that we can further maintain our asphalt.
Okay, great. Can I get a picture of that, please?
Absolutely.
You know, whatever it is the marina is thinking about buying. Okay, thank you.
One of the difficulties that we've had in this particular area is that we have our maintenance team is capable of doing this work at a much lower cost than hiring it out, but we haven't had the right equipment. And so we'll be able to leverage the skill sets and the talents of our maintenance crew by providing the right equipment. And then that way we can keep this work in-house just with the raw materials necessary for the asphalt improvements without having to contract everything out and pay prevailing wage as a public works project.
Well, we don't have very many asphalt projects coming up, Warren. Just kidding. I had to inject a little humor.
Good call.
Thanks, Chair Harding, and thank you, Warren. Yeah, if I could get a picture of that, that'd be great, because I can't imagine what that looks like. Okay, here's the, kind of a large item. Going to the marine terminal. Boy, that seems like an awful lot of money for a gate replacement. What gate, back gate or front gate, and what are we talking about there?
And so this, I would usually lean on option. If I recall correctly, it is the northern gate. And it is the infrastructure around the gate itself, as well as the gate is starting to wear. So it isn't just the gate itself, it's all of the infrastructure and supported ground around that gate.
Right, and that's part of the security grant funds as well.
So people can,
What's that?
because people could break in, or what is the risk of?
Well, it's obviously a secure access control facility, and the gate needs replacement. And I know that was part of the grant application that went in for this one and was awarded. So you got 300,000 is the grant, and 100,000 is our match, 25%.
It seems like an awful lot of money for an electric gate, a sliding gate that simply goes back and forth. Do personnel use that gate on a daily basis?
Yes.
Oh, the maintenance people, because their shop is right back there. I see.
That and Cascade Pole and Stormwater are right adjacent to that gate. That's the gate that group of staff uses on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you. What's a fuel, number 18, what's a fuel containment facility? And I apologize, Chair Harding and Commissioner Ayala. I guess we're looking at this for the first time, and typically when we get a budget book, every single capital project has about a half a page explanation. So, but since the capital budget is in front of us today, I feel motivated to ask these questions for information.
I think it's great, Commissioner Downing. This is the purpose of this meeting, is to have these discussions. So don't feel like you're monopolizing. This is the whole purpose.
Yeah, that's right too. And you're exactly right, Commissioner. Every one of these projects will have its own white paper, which will have a complete description as well as attachments with photos and pictures and justification so that it's completely known. This was really designed to be a high level as opposed to a deep dive into it. So as a result, we did not include the white papers or the appropriate attachments and photos and things like that, but that'll be part of the process unfolding here over the next few weeks. This particular item, the fuel containment facility, what we had done in the past is when we needed to park our fuel truck, we would park it inside the marine terminal warehouse. And we had a portable containment system that we would park around it to ensure in case there was any fuel spills, we would protect for it. Well, now as a result of our contract with Suzano, we are using 100% of the warehouse for our paper bulk. And even when we get this warehouse emptied, we're looking at the next Suzano ship is going to be arriving the third week in November. So the end result is the warehouse is being used to its full capacity, and therefore we don't have a covered parking spot or a protected area for the fuel truck. And so that's a necessity. So as a result, it's a relatively low cost project, but we are actually going to purchase a carport essentially, which will protect the fuel truck and use the existing port-owned portable containment system in a separate location on the marine terminal. So we have a permanent place to go ahead and protect the fuel truck and protect for fuel spills that is outside the warehouse. The portable fuel containment facility itself does not work unless the vehicle is also undercover. And that's why we would use it inside the warehouse. Now we can't. We have to take it outside the warehouse to allow the warehouse to be used for products that are coming in and increasing the business opportunities for the port. And that way we'll have adequate protection and containment for the fuel truck in the future.
Sounds good to me. Thank you. So then switching to number 21. So now we're talking non-ops admin, something called sustainability infrastructure, electrification of transportation. So can you elaborate on that, Warren? Or
I can speak to that one. So
Okay.
part of this grant was a grant that we went into with the tribe. And what this will fund is a couple different projects, but the main project is going to be an evaluation of our rolling stock. And it's going to evaluate if we can change out some of our diesel equipment that is on the marine terminal or port wide for that matter, and make those electric. So that'd be things like forklifts, diesel trucks, anything of that nature. And then the other part of that would be with the leftover funds after we have gone through the rolling stock evaluation, would be to evaluate for potential solar projects here at the port. And so there is a match associated with that that is 10%. And so that is where the 8,900 of port dollars comes in.
Oh, okay. That brings back that's now I remember this partnership, I think, with Nisqually Tribe to help us look at sustainability initiatives. Okay, excellent. I see. Well, the one thing I don't see on here that that I have a special interest in is shore power at the marine terminal. And that's, I understand there's grants out there, you know, to help with electrification on marine terminals. So can you speak to that? And, you know, is it a possibility that we could get something included in our 24 budget on that?
In a way, we've done that, sir. What we've done is if you take a look at items 26 and 27, we have not done this previously. It is something that I personally had exercised at other ports elsewhere and have seen done. We've created kind of a unanticipated equipment and vehicles and contingency capital projects. And that's where the shore power capability would lie, or any other unanticipated capital project that would come up. That way we have the funding set aside. We would not need to necessarily come back before the commission other than to justify what the actual project is. But that way it's funded, the budget funding is there. And then that way, if the opportunity comes up and exists and it pencils out, then we have the opportunity to move forward with the budget funding already provided.
Okay, well, that's thank you, Warren. You know, I was hoping to see something more definitive because of the fact that, I understand that grant money is out there waiting to be used, according to the WPPA. So, I'd like to see some movement on that. But I'm not prepared to make a motion. I think I'll research it a little further and see what my fellow commissioners think about that. As
Well,
we,
I'll do a little bit more digging. As you may know, our Marine Terminal Senior Manager is on vacation for a few weeks, and
Okay.
so we'll go ahead and verify it with that. But ultimately, as I come into this, it was simply not ready for prime time with the information that we had available, and as a result, did not become a separate line item on the capital budget.
Well, thanks, Warren. If you can enlighten us further about that, that would be great as we move through the budget cycle. But at least you have, now, I mean, I have a small issue with 26 and 27, items 26 and 27, because I have not seen that on past capital budgets where we have, you might say, contingency money, or, not sure what you call it, but it's like when you have a project and you have 5 or 10% contingency added on to the project. So, I mean, I think there's methodology for port staff to come back to the commission and say, oh, we'd like to do this. It wasn't on the capital budget. Can we get, can we get it added to the capital budget? So I think there's a process for additional items. We don't use it too often because the goal of a budget is to lay out your plan for the year and pretty much stick to it. So,
I can give you an example. I can give you one example on that, sir, where which directly led to this particular addition. Is I was under the impression, based upon the pilot controlled lighting system, that was going to go ahead, and it actually had failed. And I was not sure that I was actually going to be able to resurrect it to a usable condition to become a separate project going forward. The end result is we were able to do that. But other than that, what would have happened is the failure of the pilot controlled lighting system would have meant leaving the lights on from sunset to sunrise 24/7. And that would have been an incredible increase in utility costs. And by having this particular type of contingency fund available, I could have immediately exercised the ability to go ahead and replace that system without having to wait the additional time of coming back to the commission. I could have immediately activated a contract with either one of our unit price contractors or a new contract immediately to have that system done on an emergency basis and remove the utility increased cost from a line item. So that was one example right there that I could give you. The other thought that occurs to me with regard to your question about the shore power is the shore power. I'll have to go back and look at the details. That is something that might be a small enough amount that it may already be within our M&O budget. I am not certain. I'll go back and take a look at that. But that could be an M&O project that might not have raised up to the level of capital improvement. But I'll double check.
Yeah, I want to comment on that too. And we can come back more as you had asked, Commissioner, with some additional information. But one of the things that we looked at, the last time the shore power discussion came up, it was very specific to a ship and its requirements and electrical loads. And we were attempting to respond to that need. And if you recall, the POCAC went and did a study on shore power some time ago, and we can go back and refresh that. But for us to just go out and pick a standard and do shore power without a specific customer that we know is going to come to use it, it's a little bit challenging. And so we'll go back and get some more information and bring that back to you to the commission for a better understanding.
Thank you, Rudy. Thank you. Chair Harding, I'm going to wrap up my my questions. So I appreciate all these responses from James, Rudy, Warren. Thank you very much. I turn the microphone back to the chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Downing. Where do real estate capital projects show up in this whole process? I think of real estate as being a business line, and so do they have their own capital? Or is it
In turn, there are none on the
There are none,
project.
You know, so in terms of our.
None projected,
Right.
None projected.
okay.
Right.
So none of our real estate is gonna require any capital investment in the next however long.
Well, that's, as of right now, that's, they're not on the list, and certainly Clarita can address that. She was involved in the
Okay.
capital, the
The,
process.
the items that show up for real estate are M and O projects.
Right.
As opposed to capital projects. For
Okay.
example, a parking lot roof repair, or a parking lot repair, for example, over in, Newmarket. Another example is our Washington State Patrol Building 16 in Clean Water Center. We're gonna be doing some tenant improvements in there with paint and some carpet replacement. That's an M and O project, so it does not rise, it's not a capitalization project, because these are existing buildings and existing facilities, and we're really in the maintenance aspect of that. None of them rise to the level of, for example, CBC would have been a real estate project. The CBC roof are probably the two most notable capital projects that you've seen lately. But
So-
that would be about the extent of it.
Just as we're trying to work on the structure, I think having a column for real estate and then having it have a zero. But just so that we are anticipating that,
Okay. Sure.
like just
Sure.
mentally knowing,
Mhm.
as we're trying to balance the contribution to our different business lines. I don't know if that would help me. Cause I was like, maybe it's somewhere else.
And as I understand it, historically, it has fallen under the non-ops admin category. So we actually do have one project for 2025. It is number 14 on there, the North-South Road. And it's for the Clean Water Center Access Road. And historically, as I said, that they've fallen under the non-ops admin, but we certainly could separate that out.
I don't
So-
know, just,
Yep.
sometimes if it's not listed. Forget about it.
Absolutely.
Can I say, Chair?
Yeah,
Well, I mean, what about number 8, which says, Washington State Patrol hangar roof? So that's capital item, but it's,
But
why
it's
is
on,
that not M and O?
because the cost of that one exceeds the capability of an M and O, and that's a roof replacement, much like we did on CBC.
Oh, okay.
But that is within the airport fence. So as a
Okay.
result, it becomes a 010 project as opposed to a 012, 014. If we were replacing the roof, for example, over on our warehouse building in Newmarket, that would be a 012 project, and then it would show up as a real estate capital project. But the Washington State Patrol hangar is in the airport, inside the airport fence, so it's coded as 010, and the airport is coded airport as opposed to real estate.
Got it.
and the only other thing I was thinking is just, thinking about performance of our business lines, and this is this broader financial conversation that we've been wanting to have and has been punted based on staffing. Incentivizing performance through capital allocation, so the marina increased revenue by 25%, and so then they know that if they do that, then they're going to be able to execute on some capital project that they wouldn't have otherwise. Just some way of connecting the dots, that it's not just, oh, whose building is dilapidated, it's also a connection to who's managing their business, and we want to incentivize that so that, and I think we can do that by investing in capital. So everyone's kind of blank staring me. What are your thoughts on that?
So Commissioner, as I had indicated, we have in our work plan to be able to do our business units evaluations, and that is certainly one of those things that can be factored into that. That's certainly a longer discussion, but yes, I agree.
Yeah, and as Rudy, as you and I have talked about, there is a level of like, eagerness on behalf of the commission of. There's a financial conversation that we've been asking for quite some time that we haven't had, that is underlying all of these decisions. So, getting into that at the beginning of next year will be great. And we recognize that you're doing a great job getting everything baked in with what we have now. I know you are, but it is, for me, it's just really hard to
All right.
not have that conversation when it's like,
Sure. Well, let's for just a second, since we're on the topic, one of the challenges that we're at when that conversation occurs would be, okay, if a business unit, it doesn't matter which one you pick, a business unit has a net operating income at the end of let's just say if we were using 2022, at the end of 2022, business unit A had a net operating income of $100,000. Are we then going to say, okay, we're going to let them do a capital project up to $100,000 in the next year? Or
I think we need to ask ourselves the question.
sure,
Like, and that's what I'm having a hard time with, is we haven't asked ourselves the question of how and what are we expecting of our business lines? And then how and what can they expect from investment in capital? And I think that is a operational and strategic conversation. And it's both. And this is where the commission hasn't been involved in that conversation. And there's a layer that the commission needs to be involved in that conversation. Because, for instance, I'm on the hospital board. We talk sometimes about things that are revenue generating. There is a big difference of opinion on whether we should fund things that are revenue generating because they will make us more money, or we should fund things that aren't because nobody else is going to pay for them. And we should be having that conversation as a commission, as a philosophical, strategic,
sure.
and that needs to interface with the operational realities. But it's not, I just don't think it can be like band-aiding asphalt repair. Otherwise we'll be, at least we're taking it in-house. Because I mean, we're gonna have asphalt to repair for the rest of eternity. But at some point we don't want to be reactive, we want to be proactive. And that's what I think Commissioner Ayala,
Well, and as James indicated early in the presentation, the process that went into putting this list of projects together. And I don't think that you're going to see anything on this list that falls in the area of wants. You know, we
No.
eliminated wants very
Yeah.
early in the process to what are our needs. And then those criteria, is it safety, security, regulatory? Is it,
Yes.
Maintenance? Is it
Understood.
potentially revenue generating?
Understood. And
And-
you guys have done a great job with getting us to the baseline with where we're at. And how do we get out of that hand to mouth thinking is what I would like to see, which requires a strategic financial conversation. And you guys are doing a great job of moving this forward, especially given that we haven't had full staffing and we haven't had lots of things. So,
At some risk, I'll jump in here.
oh boy.
So a couple of thoughts is looking at history is probably 5 or 6 years ago, we had $5 million of capital reserves. And we have a history at the port of having funded capital projects with bonds. And then look at our debt structure as a result. And as a result, it was like, wait a second, this cannot continue. So we stopped doing capital projects with bond money. And the idea is reduce the debt service and get rid of that. So we have done nothing with bonds for several years. And as a result, the next step in that process was only the capital that was provided or the income earned before depreciation would then be used to the capital budget. And so as a result, we restricted and held down the capital budget investment. The good news is over the last 5 years, we've gone from 5 million to in excess of $15 million in the bank. But as a result of that, we have paid down some debt service. We've increased our capital reserves, but we knowingly, intentionally did not necessarily invest in all the capital projects that needed to be done. And so there's probably a sweet spot in there. So that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is that as a port as overall is leveraging in particular our real estate assets, non-new market, non-clean water, but the other real estate assets we have to provide the generation of revenue and the business opportunities that can then fund some things, maybe to a greater percentage of the community benefit of having a recreational marina, of having a boat works, of facilities that don't exist elsewhere in the South Sound that are premier locations and destinations for do-it-yourself work. Those are community entities that do deserve some support from the port that may not necessarily pencil out 100% by an individual business unit. So that
Totally.
somehow that needs to be factored in the equation, and obviously a subject of a completely separate retreat, you
Yeah.
know, to go ahead and nail down exactly how we want to do this going forward.
And I hope it's clear, I am not at all suggesting that anyone should have to pay for themselves that's not the point. This is a
Yeah.
public agency for a reason. We're providing public benefits that are far beyond private sector thinking. And I think we could use a sprinkle of private sector thinking to help us move things along. So,
Agreed.
go. Did you have something?
Well, I would like
Comment?
to point out that, I think that's really why the waterfront center shouldn't be with the Marina and Boat Works. It just doesn't make any sense to me there. The Boat Works, the two projects for Boat Works that had to do with the stormwater. Why are those capital projects and not M&O projects?
Well, and I'll let James jump in here, but as I recall, the discussion is when, you know, we have these discussions with our finance people and say, what's the criteria for M&O and where do you cross the
Right.
threshold? Is it a complete rebuild or is it a maintenance overhaul? And we concluded on these particular projects that they met the threshold for not only the dollar amount, but the type of work to being done that were a capital project. So, James.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. And I won't pretend to understand all of the financing, but yes, typically it is, if it's going to be a repair that ends up being more in the operations and maintenance. If it ends up being a replacement, something that's going to be capitalized, then it ends up going in the capital budget.
That's the magic word is whether or not the financial asset from the internal auditing perspective is a capitalized budget or
Yeah.
item or not,
Right.
is what dictates where it lands.
And increase the life of the facility.
Mhm.
Then one last question, on 25, or excuse me, 26 and 27, how did we come up with the amounts? If their contingency, is that based on a percentage or is it?
I think one of the things that we looked at where we ran into one of our challenges before, we just tried to pick a reasonable amount of dollars that would kept us within the threshold under 2.5 was one of my thinking, and what projects in the past, and I want to be clear, the reason that we put these here is sometimes we're also in a scenario where we have a time constraint, which is hard to articulate without a specific example, but where for us to come back and do a new resolution and a capital budget amendment, it just takes a certain amount of time where we need to be able to make some decisions. Now, what I put there is with the asterisk, we would still come back to the Port Commission at a particular commission meeting to say, we want to exercise number 27 here, but what that enables us to do is to do it at a commission meeting without going through a full capital budget amendment and a resolution. It just allows the process to be done in an easier fashion, but still having commission oversight.
I can give you another example on that one, is in the 2022 budget. There was an opportunity to go ahead and purchase an electric van for the Marina and Boat Works. That did not happen because of supply chain. And so as a result, it was taken out. It wasn't even carried forward to the 2023 budget. So as a result, it wasn't even a line item. And lo and behold, now that electric van now is available. And we're sitting there going, and we can't get it because it's not in the 2023 budget. And so we're looking at right now, what's that cost going to be, and possibly coming back to you depending upon the time frame. It's one of those things, is either grab it now or we will lose the ability to take it. And so that's why, another example of why number 26 in particular showed up, because here we couldn't get it. Didn't look like we were going to be able to get it, took it out of the budget and left it out. And if we had had 26 in the 2023 budget, we'd be done and we'd already be putting forward an opportunity to go ahead and get an electric vehicle replacement.
Okay.
So,
And we also had some additional items come up, potential with the marine terminal, with the equipment associated with a cargo, which, could easily have fallen into this category as well.
I think it's completely reasonable to have that. I think
I do.
kind of like what Bob's saying, though, like it's a percentage of the budget, or let's create some structure because we are hiring good staff. We want to trust good staff. We want you to be able to execute. And let's just make it so that it's consistent or at least
Mhm.
clear.
Okay.
That I think, and I think I'll just, again, like, there's nothing wrong with it just being just one bucket. Contingency projects, and then you
And-
guys get to decide how you wanna use it, because that's the whole point.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, where this came into, I was at another port district before coming to Olympia. And I, every single year for the 4 years I was there, every single year, that line item was used and exercised in unanticipated ways. Either an unexpected opportunity came
Yeah.
up, or in one case, stormwater failure. Or this particular port had its own wastewater treatment plant, and the wastewater line failed, which would have shut down every business in the entire industrial park. And in that particular case, that port owned the wastewater system. It's not something that we do here. But as a result, by having that funding available, we can immediately affect the repairs and not lose a beat. And that's what that provides. Not that we would doing anything that would be behind closed doors,
No.
but you just have the immediate ability to respond quickly, knowing you have the budget authority and the trust of the commission to be able to do that. That's huge.
yeah, Commissioner Downing, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, I did. Thank you, Chair Harding. I have to respond. I'd like to respond to your comment about incentivizing business units by way of the capital projects. And, you know, my first reaction is I'm probably not in favor of that, because in any given year, there's variability between business units and their success. And also, some business units provide a greater community amenities, such as the Swantown Marina and the airport. And that impacts their bottom line. Really, I think that as Port Commissioners Harding and IL and the future Port Commissioners, hopefully you look at, do we want to be in this business? I mean, you take a global look and you say, do we want to be in this business? And so earlier today, I had a conversation with Danny Kim, just to try to, believe it or not, after this many years, I still wonder about depreciation and how that fits into the budget and so on and so forth. And depreciation is really, and I've come to this conclusion, and it's pretty simple, that depreciation is a way of, officially recognizing the fact that your assets are getting older year by year. And so this year's depreciation is $3.6 million budgeted, and that means things are wearing out. And so then we have on the other side of the coin, and that's a non-cash expense. And so when you look at the operations of any particular unit, a person should look at, in my opinion, the right above depreciation. So how are we doing, covering our operating expenses and our overhead, but not depreciation, because depreciation is non-cash, and depreciation in a way is offset by a capital budget plan, which is, we're spending money. And many of these items that we just finished talking, or that we're in the midst of talking about, are either improvements or replacement on existing assets. So in a way, we're attending to our official, as the port's wearing out, the port is wearing out to the tune of 3.6 million a year on paper. And so then we put money towards these projects. And so again, getting back to my basic premise, Commissioner Harding, is just that we want to keep all four enterprises alive: the marine terminal, the real estate, the airport, and the marina and Swantown and so forth. We're committed to keeping those alive. And as long as we're committed to keeping those alive, we should put together a capital plan such as this, as Rudy says, what is needed. Thank you.
And just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that financial performance is the only metric. I would just like to see us have more metrics, because I don't know how we have accountability, and I don't know how we improve if we don't know where we're trying to go. So, and that could be that you have 4,000 children visit your business line that year. That could be the metric. But we just need to know what that is.
I think we're having that this month.
Yeah, I know. Tours. Okay, anything else on this? Thank you, James Warren.
Thank you for your time.
Thank James.
Clarita has
Thank you,
been
guys.
patiently waiting back there. Clarita Maddox, Real Estate Senior Manager, Real Estate Operations Brief.
So Commissioners, before Clarita starts, one thing I wanted to preface this with, as you recall, a number of months ago, Commissioners had requested that we provide quarterly operations briefs. We've done the Marine Terminal, we've done the Marina. This is an opportunity for Clarita to talk about our real estate section. And I wanted to be clear, this is not a budget brief, so this is not associated with the 2024 budget. This is purely an operations update from the real estate. So over to you, Clarita.
Thank you so much. Well, before I get started, I want to say that I love what I do and that I feel deeply appreciative and privileged to be able to do what I actually love doing for as long as I have for the Port of Olympia. So I want to say thank you to the commission. I want to today present you a briefing of the general operations of the real estate program from our revenue standpoint and the activities that we have throughout all of the properties that the port holds. So I want to start with the team. Oh, I guess I'm in charge of this.
You are.
Okay, so our team, our team is at 3 FTEs, starting with Warren Harrington, our director, Jessie Bensley, who is currently in maternity leave and holding her baby already, beautiful baby boy. And Kimberly Weber, who has stepped into that position as lease administrator and property manager on a temporary basis and doing a wonderful job responding, training, and learning what real estate is all about, which, as you well know, is not only demanding, but very unpredictable. So we are very grateful to have her. She comes from the administrative side. She's with us on a temporary basis, but again, we're very grateful to have her. The services that we provide in the real estate program is new and redevelopment of land and space leases, and I should also say flex space, which is one of the most demanding spaces right now in the area I've discovered. So I'll get into that, our flex space, a little bit later in the presentation. We do the property management of the leased areas. We do the maintenance, lease administration and contract management and compliance. And that compliance includes not only the tenant's compliance according to our contract, but also the port's compliance on what we have committed in our lease contracts. And obviously, the foundation of our success and the foundation of any success is the customer care and the retention that we work so hard on. The port has, oh, sorry, keep doing my, okay, the port has the land and space leases, a total of 115 leases spread out throughout all of our properties. The Port Peninsula has 138 acres. Tumwater has close to 1,395, and Lacey has 5 acres. The properties team also manages the Port Plaza, and we work closely with not only our internal team, but other entities privately mostly. And this is a beautiful location that we have and enjoy at the port. This has become an attraction for our community where we gather, where we eat together, dance together. We celebrate life, we celebrate weddings, we celebrate our history. A lot of it also comes with the sponsoring of the port on many of the community events that we enjoy. And that has become a very popular, and it is a beautiful location. We're very proud of, and we're happy to maintain it as it is. So the port sponsors the Music at the Park and the Olympia Brew Fest, the Olympia Harbor Days, and the Capital City Pride, the latest one. So I'll go over each of the locations of where we have land or space for each of the geographical locations where the port has land. And the Port Peninsula has 28 leases. All 28 leases are land leases at this point at the Port Peninsula. The Marine Terminal has 7. Tenants, Swan Town Marina and Boat Works has 3. East Bay has 4. The Market District has 11 leases and North Point's 3 leases. The activity here in this particular area of our properties yields over $1.7 million annually. And so that's an exciting, what I love about this is the variety of tenants that we have, and we deal with all of them in a different way, and they have different needs. We have a great opportunity to partner with them and keep them informed about what the port does and how they contribute to the health of our area in the county. The New Market at the airport, New Market Industrial Campus and the airport have a total of 65 leases on the combined uses on 1,395 acres, as I mentioned before. 36 of them are airport aviation related, and the New Market Industrial Campus has land as well as space leases. The yielding of revenues there is over $2.6 million a year. Clean water is also part of the airport, New Market. It sits north of the airport and is part of the whole combination of the airport ownership. And it sits on approximately 10 acres. And out of the 9 buildings that we have there, six of them are occupied. And we have 2 of the leases that are owned by the port. The business model here is we sell the buildings and we lease the land underneath it. And the new owners redevelop or repurpose the buildings according to the new guidelines that the port adopted a few years back. The yielding opportunity of revenue here for both land and space is $229,000 and a bit more on an annual basis. We enjoy, I should say that this has become a very popular location for businesses, particularly small businesses. We have Scribbles and Giggles, which is a daycare. We have a variety of tenants here. We have Sound Direct Medicine, which is redeveloping the building as we speak. We have the TK Group, which took the first building up and put Domino's Pizza there. We have the Firefly Yoga. We have the martial arts. We have a church as we speak. And then we have another building coming up with space for different subtenants. So it has become a cluster of small businesses and quite a variety of them, and they have enjoyed and love where they're located. It's a beautiful location close to the freeway, and the Washington State Patrol is also there, and they enjoy the fact that they are so close to the freeway and plan to stay there for a long time. The H building is about 25,000 square feet of space yet to be taken and to be renovated by someone. And the same thing with that particular lot of land where it sits.
Just as a point of interest,
Yes.
some folks, depending upon which way you cock your head, it's either the H building or the I building.
And now as we go to Lacey, the Commerce Business Center has 16 leases, and I'm very happy and proud to say that it's 100% occupied. We work very hard at keeping the 100% occupancy rate, and we have a waiting list or any interest. We maintain communications with any interest that is expressed as we get phone calls or through LoopNet, where we have all our properties that are available. And we try not to have gaps of time between tenants moving out, and a lot of them move out because they outgrow their space. So that's also a great news for us when they say, I need more space, and we can't meet it because we're full. But it's also great news when they leave for those reasons. This particular district yields over $604,000 a year. In conclusion, out of all these expenses we talked about, look at that. Real estate for 2023 projections is over $5.1 million. And to close it, an important part of what real estate does for the for the region really is the economic impact, what the port does for the economic impact, not only real estate, but really the port. So as you can see, jobs, direct, induced, and indirect is over 5,000. The personal income in millions is over $308 million of direct spending, local consumption, and indirect. And the business revenue is 447 million, local purchases 124 million, state local taxes is 28 million, and federal tax revenues is $47.7 million. So the port is quite the engine of great success and revenue production for the area. And so I'm very excited to present this to you. And I don't have like Rudy mentioned, the details on the operational side at the moment, but I wanted to give you these pictures because we get a lot into the expenses, and that obviously is of great interest and importance. But this is another part of the coin that literally the coin that we need to take a look at. And I think is very important and necessary, not only for us to know, but the public to be aware of. So if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer it.
Thanks, Clarita.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Aiello, do you have any questions or comments or Commissioner Downing?
I guess I was a little surprised that the CBC property is 5 acres. I didn't think it was that large.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
So approximately 5 acres. We have close to 60,000 square feet of space.
yeah.
And that's where the flex space is, which means it has warehouse and front office space.
Very desirable.
Yes,
Yeah.
very desirable. Yes.
Commissioner Downing, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Thanks. Clarita, the only slide that I was surprised at is the slide that talks about the marine terminal, 7 leases on the marine terminal. Do you know those 7 leases by heart by any chance?
I do, sir. Several
Okay.
leases. The marine terminal. I actually have a list of them right here.
Way to be prepared.
So we have Holbrook, which has the log sorting and the office and the debarker.
Okay,
And the Jones Stevedoring is another lease. The JPLRC, which is the union. The SSA Marine and Warehouser.
oh, okay. So SSA and Jones Stevedoring, they actually lease some space.
That's right.
It's a small
Okay.
amount, but they do.
Okay,
Yeah, and we have to consider them in the process because we do have a contract with them, a real estate contract with them. So it's part of our
Okay.
leases. Yeah.
oh, good. Thanks, Clarita. That's wonderful. You know, I bet you didn't, I didn't know this until this morning, but till I was looking at this, but 5.1 million is approximately almost exactly 1/3 of the overall port revenue. So you're sitting on quite the gold mine there. I just want to say.
Real estate is that way, yes.
I asked this of auction and we don't get a lot of FaceTime as a commission with the business line. So if you had a magic wand or something you wanted to communicate to the commission as to how real estate could perform better, what would you say?
I would say let's spend money to make money. And so there are locations, some projects that I would personally spend my money on to make money, to create opportunities and a platform to, and yes, at the beginning, you know, every time you say invest money, is it gonna give us the return? I say anytime you sit on real estate, you will be making money. And it might be on a slower pace perhaps, but it's more of a sure thing that it happens. Real estate is the place to invest. So
What is the process for real estate investment ideas coming to the commission? We talked about how there weren't any capital projects budgeted.
Sure.
If
There's-
that was an area that,
I can address that. There's really two, there's a checklist that was created a couple of years ago. It talks about a new business development opportunity where you can start to walk through those. And I believe I attached that when I sent you the draft of the agenda. I think it's page 2 was also the that particular checklist. There's also another one, checklist associated with our real estate reinvestment fund, which is established by port policy. Even though it's one big pot of money, there's a separate accounting for the real estate reinvestment fund. So when we sell a piece of like the lot sale, for example, that lot sale money got earmarked into the real estate reinvestment fund. When the port says, hey, here's Clarita just came to us with this opportunity to go buy the X in Tumwater, and we could use the real estate reinvestment fund money. We pull out the checklist and the commission walks through it, says, does it meet all of these criteria? And then is it worth moving forward on? And then that's how we would evaluate those.
I guess, given that some of our other business lines have more of a community focus and real estate is more of a bottom line focus. In addition to having this real estate reinvestment fund money sitting there waiting to be deployed, I don't know if there's a way for there to be a conversation around the types of projects that the commission would be looking for, the types of projects that real estate would recommend. Because as we're looking at ways of improving our revenue generation so that we can fund Bud Inlet and fund
That's right.
all of these projects, there may be opportunities that we don't even know exist.
Well, and I would anticipate that's a conversation we'll be embarking on after the first of the year. If indeed the CBC sale goes through for that, then it would be that at that point, the commission could evaluate and say, you know, do we want to do this consistent with the real estate reinvestment fund, or does a piece of that, piece of that money go to Waterfront Center, which could meet the criteria? Does some of that money go to Bud Inlet? Does it go to some other project that real estate may bring forward? So that would be, I'd say after the first of the year is a good opportunity for that conversation.
And I think as we're looking at earmarked dollars, just knowing there's $2 million in the real estate reinvestment account. So that's not a part of what we can anticipate spending, just as we're trying to have a better understanding of what our actual cash position is. Because I think our cash position is not as clean cut as maybe it is in other businesses, because of all these layers with,
Right.
I think it's great, Clarita. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for
lots
your
of
time.
opportunities, and I would love to have like your ideas on what is the port actually good at as far as owning real estate? Where are we actually seeing the biggest return on investment?
Mm.
Because there's things that we aren't going to be as competitive at, and there's things and
That's correct.
big, small, lots of tenants, less tenants. So combining the market realities with the port government agency realities to make good investment decisions.
That's right.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Warren.
May I offer, simply because of Clarita and James' presentation today, in my official new role here as operations, how proud I am of my team. We can't ask for a better steward of our real estate assets than Clarita. And what TJ and Option and James brings, I am fortunate and blessed to have an incredible group of staff that are watching my business lines and doing day work. So it's a very privileged to be in this position. I want to make sure that you're aware of that if you want to read.
I appreciate that, Warren. And
And-
And I
If
can
I could-
see why Clarita's happy with her job. Happy
Well, I
to
could
do what
point
she
out
does.
too, you're not supposed to say the word Clarita without adding cash. It's Clarita Cash.
one of your tenants, RHD Enterprises, the owner is a friend of mine, and she sent me an email specifically saying, I just love Clarita. I love working with Claritas.
Nice.
Okay, anything else, commissioners?
Nope. Nothing from me.
Okay, it is 4:13 and this meeting is adjourned. There was written